Now, let's talk a little bit about the rhythm of history. China in the past 2 years, has really suffered, well, not suffered, has engaged in a lot of different behaviors since Xi Jinping became president and gathered a whole lot of power together in his own hands. And so China has begun to act like a great power. And it is, in my mind, similar to what Germany was doing in the years running up to 1914, and also similar, by the way, to the United States, which in the 1890s, along with Germany, began to flex its muscles and to say, we're going to challenge Great Britain, and we're going to change the conditions of international affairs. Now, the question I would raise when we look at what, in a moment, we look at what China has been doing in the East and South China Seas, when we look at even at the turmoil here in Hong Kong with Occupy Center and so on, is there an analogy to be drawn here, and what does it mean? Is it the case, perhaps, that China is now at the stage of its development where it can do what Germany and the United States did, which is to set the conversation internationally and to change the character of what goes on internationally? Will the World Bank be changed by the Development Bank, which the Chinese are mounting? What about the International Monetary Fund? What about the dollar as the world's reserve currency? Will there be changes? I think there will be. And do we need to fear that? I don't think so. But I think we should be alert to the changes. But more concerning, is this the beginning of what happened in 1914? That is to say, is this a time of an old-fashioned geopolitical struggle in which the balance of power and various alliances are critical? Is the world history going to change because of the emergence of China as a world player? Could China's rise and the decline, the concomitant decline of the United States, result in war? And that would be a great tragedy, as 1914 was a great tragedy. Then at the end of our talk today, I want to talk about what we can do as individuals, as students, as professors, as public intellectuals, if you will. What can we do in order to ward off the tragedy of war and instead see that the United States and China come to accommodations and that we work together for a better world? It will require accommodation on both sides. So can we, as professors, as administrators, as students, can we make a change? Can we make a difference in what we're seeing? So, Mark Twain says, history does not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. So I'm not looking for repetition here. I am looking for rhyming. There's a pattern here that we can look at. Tang Taizong, surely one of the greatest of all Chinese emperors, right? Early Tang dynasty, early 7th century, marvelous intellectual, a great leader, and he put together what I think is one of the most remarkable dynasties in Chinese history. He said, with history as a mirror, one can understand the rise and fall of a state. So I'm in good company with Tang Taizong in saying that we should pay attention to history. Now here's Margaret Macmillan, who wrote in 2013 a seminal book titled The War That Ended Peace, The Road to 1914. This is in the early pages of her book. I'll read it to you, insult you, I know you can read it. It's easy to throw up one's hands and say the Great War, World War I, was inevitable. But that's dangerous thinking, especially in a time like our own, which in some ways, not all, resembles that vanished world of the years before 1914. Our world is facing similar challenges, some revolutionary and ideological, others coming from the stress between rising and declining nations, such as China and the United States. I think there have been hundreds and hundreds of similar statements this year as scholars and pundits have looked at the rise of China and the at least partial decline of the United States. So what I want to do now and I'm already eating away at the time, is to look at four things. I'd ask you to reason with me on this. And these four propositions are about the competition between China and the United States with reflections on 1914. First, the international tensions that characterized the run-up to 1914 are remarkably similar to the events that we have in today's world. There's a great similarity there. Second, as in 1890 to 1914, so today a rising, ambitious, and even assertive power is on the horizon, and that, of course, is the People's Republic of China. Does it resemble Germany? Does it resemble what the United States did in those years? And I think it might. Third, if the United States is declining, it seems nonetheless determined to hold on to its position of dominance. Is this what Great Britain did in 1914? It could be. So there's a resonance there between the United States and Great Britain. Is the United States retiring, if you will, as the great power that takes on the burden of addressing all the ills in the world and tries to make them better? Is it stepping away from that? If it is China prepared to step into that void? A huge question. And then finally, fourth point, if we learn the right lessons from 1914, and we could learn the wrong ones, but if we learn the right ones, can conflict be avoided in your time?